everybody, and welcome back to Darvanalee Designs Studio. For those that don't know, my name's Nicole Reed, and today we're working on Long Dog Samplers Pandemic for our Stitch With Me, and that's the area that I'm going to be working on today. I am using Silks For You. PR068 is the colour. It is like a red and charcoal. Alright, so what has been going on in the last week? We have been pretty busy. And we've picked up little Em, so our morning is working through that this morning. So she's in doing some diamond painting and watching a little bit of TV. As you can see, I am not set up at all, so I've got to thread my needle and sort that out. I'm working that area just there, and yeah, so we're starting on page 2 of Pandemic. I think the last time you've seen this for the Stitch With Me, I had actually finished page 1 with you. So yeah, so that's what we've been doing. Just looking at this needle, it looks a little bit bent, but I'll try and give it a bit of a thread and see if we can't get it started. So yeah, I've been working away and just doing what I need to get done for the shop and making project bags. Of course, I have been reading. I have not read as much as I normally would. In the last week, I have been looking at books on Audible Plus. They've opened up their catalogue. I have to get a new needle. Yeah, so they've opened up their catalogue, and now there's a lot of other titles that are actually included in my membership. So, yeah, so I've been looking at a lot of different titles. Now, last week when I spoke to you, I was going to read The Orchard, and that had Eric Banner and a couple of other people in it as well, and so it was great. Like, when I listened to it, I wasn't sure at first because it had all the sound effects and everything like that. And as you know, a lot of Audible books do have the voices, but they don't necessarily have the sound effects. So I was listening away to that, and it only had 13 chapters. So it's a short story, so to speak. And it was actually quite funny because as I was listening to it, I was not having flashbacks for myself, but just TV shows that you've seen and stuff like that, where you get sort of that flashback happening, and I could just imagine people sitting around the wireless and stuff like that. That's sort of what it felt like. It was a little bit reminiscent of that sort of era. So it was quite an interesting book. I was pretty happy with it. Like, I couldn't stop listening to it. I listened to it in a couple of hours. I had a few interruptions, so I listened to it in a couple of hours, but it was great. Like, I really enjoyed it. The only thing is I can't add it to my Goodreads list, so I'm going to have to start a reading journal now for some of these short stories. So that let me down on Tuesday. That was last Monday. I listened to that, and I think I finished it on Tuesday morning during my walk. And so last Tuesday, after I'd done some filming and stuff like that, that led me down the rabbit hole of what was included in this extra that we're getting from Audible now. So, yeah, I went down the rabbit hole. I've added so many more to my list. Some of them are books. Some of them are just short stories. And yeah, so I'm pretty excited to see what else. And then I told Brendan about it as well, and he was wrapped. He goes, I have found so much to listen to, even from favourite narrators and stuff like that. He's found a ton of stuff, and he goes, it's good because I'm not using my monthly credit, and I can just let them roll over and tick over until something comes out, because he's waiting on the new Lee Child's book. It hasn't been released on Audible. I think it's the end of October that comes out, or beginning of November. So yeah, he's waiting on that one. And he keeps trying to encourage me to read the Lee Child's books, but I just haven't got there yet. I'm just reading the stuff that I've had in my wish list and all that sort of stuff. So I listened to this Orchard book. It was great. As I said, I couldn't put it down. I rated it a 5. It kept me sort of on the edge of my seat. The sound effects was a little bit different for me because, as you know, I've not been into audiobooks for that long, but I just find that I can get so much more done in my day and still enjoying my hobby, which is, immersing myself into a good novel. So I'm going to go down after this video, and I'm going to go down and get myself a little journal from the news agency, and I'm going to basically, set up a reading journal for these short stories because there are quite a few in there. And basically the premise is that it starts off with a murder, or they find a dead body at the edge of an orchard. And it just basically leads the main character, which is Eric Banner, who's a police officer detective, through a whole web of lies and twists and turns and all that sort of stuff. And he's got a young daughter who is also sidelined to the main character, but she's a bit surly. She's a tween, she's not quite a teenager, but she's almost getting there, and she's only 11 years old, and they've got their problems. And his wife is no longer with them, and I don't want to give any spoilers or anything like that, but it is included in your Audible subscription. Now I have the 16.45 or 16.95 a month subscription that gives me 1 credit, and then this is all included in that. So it's also been really good for the classics as well, which as you know, last week or the week before, I decided I was going to read all the classics again. And so all the Jane Austens and, Charles Dickens, and, all those sort of ones. So, so I am at the moment reading, I have started reading the Jane Austen books, so some of her popular ones. So last time I read Sense and Sensibility, and as I said in that one, I'm glad that I'm listening to them and I'm not actually physically sitting down to read these books, because I'd find myself probably getting not much reading done, because I would be sitting there thinking I need to do some other stuff. Now, while they're great and they're classics, and I get why they're classics and all the rest of it, they're not going to be everybody's cup of tea, but I sort of wanted to revisit them again, just for the simple fact that I read them when I was younger, either in school or just out of school, and I don't think I was really appreciating what I was reading. So I think that by revisiting them again, I'm going to have a better appreciation for what they actually are, I think, at this age than what I did when I was younger. And I've known lots of people that have done this themselves, and they've said the same thing. They had a better appreciation for the writing and all that sort of stuff later on in life, as opposed to when they were at school. Now, as I said, I've read some of these at school and all the rest of it, but I am glad. I'll just reiterate that I'm glad that I'm listening to them, because I can do cross stitch, or I can do quilting, or I can be cooking, or I can be cleaning. I can be doing other things while reading or listening to them, as opposed to sitting down and reading them. So that is sort of where I am at with the classics. So basically, going down the rabbit hole on last Tuesday, this is why I didn't get many books read this week. I'm aiming for 3, and I still got 3 read, but I was hoping to get the 4th one in, just to get me closer to that goal. And for those that are new here and have never joined us before, basically what I'm doing this year is I am doing I've set myself a challenge. It came about from being in one of the cross stitch challenge groups on Facebook, and basically what their challenge was to read 100 books in 2021, and they gave you a whole heap of genres. So at the beginning of the year, I went through all the genres and went through my bookshelf, because, even though I wasn't reading very much, or not at all most of the time, I hadn't really sat down and read a good book for, put some serious effort into reading for quite some time. And so I went through my bookshelf and I had quite a number of books on there. So I had the Witcher series there. I've got Harry Potter, which I've never read. Like, even though that has been out for over 20 years now. Longer, wouldn't it be? Because the movies have been out for about 20 years. So I had never actually read the book. And Game of Thrones, I've never read that. And then there was a couple of other series that I had just been collecting over the time and putting on my bookshelf. Now, I have seen Lord of the Rings and all that sort of stuff, but I've only ever read The Hobbit, so I wanted to revisit those books again. There's been some other books that have crept into my list. Needless to say, I started the year out really, really well, and I was sticking to my list, and I put the feelers out to a few friends that have got, extensive libraries and stuff like that for period pieces and whatnot. So in the end, I read the first series that I read at the beginning of the year was the Witcher series. That is a Netflix show as well, which I believe in December the second season's coming out. It's been delayed because of COVID and all that sort of stuff. And so basically, I read that series back to back. I did a combination of reading and listening because I didn't have all the books here. Subsequently, I've got all the books now because I had the whole series. I really enjoyed that series as well. And I was also reading the Discovery of Witches series, which I have the 3 books of those. And I believe there's a 4th book out or coming out. I don't know whether it's actually a novel or whether it's, I haven't really looked into it, because while I enjoyed the first book of Discovery of Witches and I somewhat enjoyed the second book of the Discovery of Witches, I have been really not wanting to go to the third one, and I'm midway through the story. I will finish it because I am keen to know what happened, what's going to happen with the characters and all that sort of stuff. So that is G'd up to be read. I'm probably going to listen to that one. I did a combination. I read the first one and then I did a combination on the second one of audio and reading. So I was listening to it during the day and then I was reading it at night before I went to bed. So I've got that one sort of teed up as well. But they are all ones that I've had to purchase. So back to the whole, these things are included. I have found so many similar to the Orchard short stories, so that's why I'm going to go and get the journal. I have also found most of Jane Austen's books are included now, so I can read, fly through them. And I say read because, like, while I'm listening to it, I'm still reading the book, so to speak. I'm just not physically reading it. And so basically, I've just gone through and I found all of the classics that are included and added them to my wish list and all that sort of stuff. So that sort of took up a little bit of my time. So I didn't read anything on Tuesday. Then on Wednesday of last week, I ended up putting on the Pride and Prejudice audiobook, and I pretty much listened to that in that day and a little bit of Thursday morning. And so basically, it is a Jane Austen book, and most people know Pride and Prejudice. If you haven't read the book, you've probably seen the movie and all the rest of it. And that's another thing that I'm going to do. Once I have read her books, I'm actually going to go and watch the movies that they've done and just see how compatible they are and how close to the story they stay and how much Hollywood license that they took, or English license, because a lot of those movies are very heavily English-based actors and stuff like that have been in Hollywood and all the rest of it. So I'm going to revisit them. So it's giving me, doing this challenge for myself is actually also moving me towards some relaxing time where I can sit and cross-stitch and watch the movie and not really have to pay attention to the movie because I've read the book. So that's sort of where I'm at with that. Now, Pride and Prejudice. Last week, I didn't really rate Sense and Sensibility. I think because I found the characters, like just thinking back over the book while I was reading Pride and Prejudice and how they compared. Again, it's along the same storyline of marrying well to, for women to marry well and all that sort of stuff. It was the times. That was when it was written. Jane Austen was focusing on her strengths of what she knew, writing about what she knew, which it always makes for a good storyline and all the rest of it, because you can put a little bit more passion into it and you can build your characters a little bit better. You don't have to do as much research because you're living in that time. So for me, I could see why she was writing about that and all the rest of it. As as far as the story goes, as I said, it's very, very similar, but it was more, the characters were more, I felt that they were a stronger character that she wrote about this time, even though the characters in Sense and Sensibility, I just found them immature, I guess is the word that I'm looking for. That was my feeling on the books and what I was feeling while I was reading them, that they were, like one of the characters was a little bit more, level-headed than the other one that was pretty much love-struck all the time. Well, that's the way she sort of come across and how Jane Austen sort of portrayed her. So I found them to be quite immature is probably the characters weren't matured. And, in thinking about how old the characters were, 17 and 19 years old, that is to be expected. So with the Pride and Prejudice, I found that the characters more mature. There was more depth to the characters, and I found myself really hating on Mr. Darcy at the beginning of the book. But once more of his character came to light, and the other characters in the book were playing into why he was the way he was and all that sort of stuff. And, I found myself rooting for Elizabeth to end up with him, because I just, early on in the book, I could see that they were very much alike. And I actually enjoyed Pride and Prejudice a lot better. So leave a comment down below. Have you read Pride and Prejudice, and what are your thoughts on it? I'm happy for you to put your thoughts. They don't have to be exactly the same as mine. That's not what, everybody has a different interpretation of books and all the rest of it. Savannah and I have a lot of conversations about books, and we were talking about books yesterday on the way down to pick up Mia. And, just how some of the books that are the classics and how she doesn't find them, they're not relevant anymore and all the rest of it. And I've even said this myself with some of the classics and all the rest of it, but then there's some that still can resonate today. And, she gets quite passionate about it, and she stirs her teacher up, and it's quite funny. But it's really good to have someone in the house that I can have those conversations with about the classics, because Brendan's not into all that sort of stuff. He's not into old literature or anything like that, and won't even have a bar of it. And I think I touched on this back when I was reading The Six Queens. And so he's not into that period stuff. He's more into your sci-fi and your fantasy and that sci-fi fantasy genre, and what do they call it, dystopian sort of books and all the rest of it, which I love those sort of books too. But he's more into, that's where he always goes. More often than not, whereas I will cover a lot of different genres, which, we've talked about. I've brought in new genres for myself, like memoirs and stuff like that, which I still haven't read. That is still in my playlist to read, which was the free book for September. So I will get to that probably before the end of the month. But yeah, so I really enjoyed Pride and Prejudice. I'm keen to read her next book. I haven't actually written down notes this time, so but I believe Pride and Prejudice was written in 1813. So it is a very old book. Over 200 years old. So that gives you a sort of idea of the writing style if you haven't read these. And if you haven't, I suggest that if you don't want to actually read them, and they're relatively cheap to buy here in Australia. We found a whole heap of the classics in a bookstore yesterday when we stopped in at Morayfield on the way home, and they were reduced down from $16.99 down to $6.99. So there was a couple of books that Savannah didn't have, so she's grabbed them for her bookshelf. And then I found out that she has my Pride and Prejudice, Emma, Sense and Sensibility, and a few other ones. So there's a couple of Jane Austens that I didn't have. So I know that she grabbed Mansfield Park yesterday, and I think she may have grabbed another one. I didn't actually check with her because I went off to look for some books that I wanted to see if they were out yet and all the rest of it. So basically, I really enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to getting to know Jane Austen a little bit better through her novels and all the rest of it. And I just want to give a shout out to Biz. After she listened to and Biz is a lovely friend of mine. She's from Canada, Nova Scotia, and we've been online friends for a very long time. And she always pops in when in summer she disappears. She goes MIA and she goes out camping and gets out into the big wide world. As you could imagine, Nova Scotia is quite cold, and so wintertime is very cold for her, and so she goes off, and we don't see her for a while, but she's come back the end of summer, and then we start to see her name pop up and all the rest of it. But I didn't really do any research into Jane Austen and where she lived in that time and all the rest of it, and what her living circumstances were and all the rest of it. But Biz, thank you. You put some comments in there that it's going to actually make me do a little bit of research and jot down some notes, and it made me, I think your comments actually made me appreciate her as a writer a little bit more, and I felt really good when I was reading it because I had that information. It made me understand why she was writing about that sort of stuff. So now I'm going to do a little bit more research, and no spoilers down in the bottom, or if you've got any tidbits or great websites to go about Jane Austen. I'd really like to get to know her as an author from all the history and stuff like that. I'm a little bit of a geek that way. If I find something interesting, I will gravitate towards it and learn as much as I can about that. So, so that's basically what I want to do in that aspect. So again, that's where that writing journal is going to come in, because I can put some notes in there, and of course that gives me the opportunity to go and buy some great stickers and decorate it and all that sort of stuff as well. So my Goodreads has been updated with Pride and Prejudice, but I can't update for Orchard. And that's where the writing journal is coming in, because that would have been well over 100 pages had it been in a book. And I will leave a link, not a link, I will leave the name of the book and the authors and all the rest of it, so you can find it on Audible. I'm sorry, I don't actually have a code or anything for Audible. I'm actually going to send them an email for those that don't have it. I'm going to send them an email and inquire about getting a free discount or something along those lines for you. But I do know that if you do go and join them now, they generally give you one free book and a month free. So you can go and check that out and see what they've got on offer. And as I said, in the and so you might be able to get quite a few little short stories through what's included. I'm not sure if that will be in your free month, but you can give it a go and see how you go. But I have G'd up a whole heap of other classics, and I found a whole heap of other books, which the list is way too extensive. I've put them all in my wish list. There is a series in there. I think it's got 9 books, so that's another series that I can top over. And as I said, I've challenged myself to read 100 books this year, and I come across this over in School of Magical Stitches and Literature is the name of the cross stitch group. If you're interested in that, I'll leave a link down below for you. You can go and check it out. You can join now, but you won't be able to be a part of any. I don't know whether you'll be able to join in for any of the challenges that they've got left for the rest of the year, but they are gearing up for 2022. I haven't had a look yet to see what they're doing for 2022, what books they're covering. But as I said, I got this challenge from them, and I've got to go and update, because every book that I read, they will be able to give. I didn't participate in the team challenges. I was going to, but then I pulled out with everything that happened at the beginning of the year with little M and all the rest of it. So I decided that I was just going to do the reading challenge, because I thought, well, I can do that. And basically, so I went over and I got my list and all the rest of it, and I'll have to bring my list next week to run through some of the books that I had on it and tick off the ones that I've read. So one of the genres was period pieces, and I added the classics into it, and I wanted to start the classics at the beginning of the year, and I never got around to it. So I only have to read 10 of the classics, so I've got plenty of time to the end of the year, and I can add them on. And as I said, every book that I read gives 100 points to a team, and I think they just randomly select the teams is how it's going to work. So I'll have to go over, update my post, because I've saved my post, and I just put the book cover, start date and finish date, and that's why I've been using Goodreads, because I knew that I could go back at any given time and update it. So I can update it once a month, or I can update it every couple of months. I haven't updated for quite some time. So I've got to go in and get all the covers and all that sort of stuff. I'm going to do that over the next week or two, and then I'm going to suss out what books they're reading next year. I don't know if I'm going to do any of the challenges, but I want to remain in the group. And hopefully they'll have the reading challenge again, and I can challenge myself. I don't know whether I'm going to go for 100 books. I think I might bring it down to about 80, just to give my poor ears a rest, and also so I can do some physical books. So the next book, so as I said, Sense and Sensibility. Sense and Sensibility, wasn't a great fan of it, I think, because the characters weren't, I found them not to be very mature. But Pride and Prejudice, I was pretty happy with. Orchard, I'm loving it. I'm going for more of those short stories, and I will show you my journal at a later date. And once I've got it up and running and all the rest of it. The next book that I read was recommended, I believe it was part of So Sweetness. Now, So Sweetness, if you don't know who she is, she does handbags and stuff like that. She's got a Facebook group. She's also got a YouTube channel. And I think it was not last year, the year before, they actually had a book club, and they, over a period, I think it was over the summer, they read 6 books or something like that. Every 2 weeks they read a book. And another friend of mine online, Tamara, she was a guest, and they talked about a guest on her channel, and basically because they live in the same area of Chicago, and Tamara's been to lots of her retreats and all the rest of it, and hopefully one day Tamara can come and visit. That's on her bucket list, to come and visit me here in Australia. We're going to organise a retreat around the same time and get a whole group of us together, so that'll be very exciting. And yeah, so they recommend The Sewing Machine, it's called, and I'm sorry I did not have my notes here, so I haven't got the author, but I will put all the details down. As I said, I was very excited to go and get Little M yesterday, and that's normally when I do all my notes and everything for Monday morning. So I'm sorry, I don't have notes this week. So, but you're used to that. I've only had notes for the last 2 weeks, so that's not a big deal. Anyway, I read this book, and I've had it in my Audible for quite some time. Brendan actually listened to it before me when I put it in there, and he goes, "It's a great book. You should read it. Like, it's really good." And originally I was going to get it and actually read it physically, but I decided to just listen to the audio this week. And it starts out in 1911 with a lady named Jean and her then fiance, what was his name? Ronald, I think his name was. They're working at the Singer factory in England, and so they work in different departments where they, she's a tester, so she is the person that used to put the, do all the testing, make sure the needle was right, put a needle in it, wind a little bit of thread on the bobbin, and then they test them and then move on and all that sort of stuff. So without giving too much away, it actually covers a couple of different areas through time. So it starts in 1911 with Jean, and then in the 1950s and 60s with Connie, and then 2016, it jumps to 2016 with Frank. And basically it goes through the book as it's being read. It is not... it's not being read in chapters, but it's being read by the person that they're referring to. So it starts off with Jean, and then it'll flick to Connie, and then it'll flick back to Jean, and then it'll flick to Frank, and then it'll come back to Connie, or it'll go back to Jean. So it's covering these three eras in time and all the rest of it. And now back in 1911, there was a massive strike, and this caused Jean's fiance to lose his job, and them subsequently having to move. But just before she left Singer, she practiced winding a message onto, and I'm not going to say what the message is, but to wind it onto a bobbin. And basically, without giving too much away, She puts it on this machine goes out into the world, and because she found herself thinking, what happened to the machines that she tested? Were they being, used to make money, or were they just being, what was being made on them and stuff like that? I will just touch on a little bit, flash forward to the 50s, and it was Connie watching her mum, and she loses her father, and they keep a diary of and all these little different things that they do and all the rest of it. I don't want to talk too much about it. It's not a long book. It only goes for about 5 hours, I think, 5 or 6 hours on Audible. It is available on Audible. And as I said, I will put all the details down below. I will also put the links to where you can buy the physical book, because I know that a lot of people aren't into audiobooks. So I will just basically put the name of what it is. You can search that in Audible, and I will put a link there, which is an affiliate link. So I get a little bit of a kickback if you do purchase one of those books. And if anybody has purchased one of those books, I do appreciate that. I can't actually see the name of the person. I can see if they've clicked on it and if they've purchased. So a couple of books have been purchased, but I don't know. Unfortunately, I don't know who the people are. But if you have purchased one of those, thank you so much. I get a little bit of kickback from that. It's usually only $1 or something along those lines. Sometimes it can be a little bit less. Sometimes it can be a little bit more. Just depends on the commission rate. So I do appreciate that. And all those affiliate links are down below. So this sewing machine book, this actually, I don't know what it was. I don't know whether I'm menopausal, whether I was just really emotional, or my hormones are going crazy, or whatever the case may be. But this book actually really, it made me cry in some areas. And it wasn't because, it was sad because, there was things happening in it that were sad and provoked a feeling. But I think it was orientated around the family, and in each of these ones, how they were close and they stuck by one another and stuff like that. And anybody that's been here for a while knows that I've never really had that in my life, except with my partner right now. And I'm estranged from my family. I don't talk to them because they're quite toxic people. And that was more for my mental health and my well-being that happens. So I don't feel sorry for myself. But every now and again, it can trip me up. And I think this book actually tripped me up a little bit. Now, it's not a super sad book, but I think the premise behind it with the family and connections and all that sort of stuff. And as humans, we all crave connections. We all want to please our family and stuff like that. So there was nothing, that was just what it provoked in me. And I found myself, tearing up a little bit and all the rest of it. And to me, regardless of what anybody else thinks about this book, to me, this book resonated with me and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I'm also going to look at other books by this author. As I said, I haven't done my research. I don't know if she's got any more books. I don't know if this is her only book. I don't know if she's co-authored with other people or anything like that. So that sort of thing, again, I'm going to go and research it and I will let you know in future videos. But I've thoroughly enjoyed the book. I thought it was an absolute fabulous storyline. It probably isn't everybody's cup of tea. If you read the reviews, there are a few 1 stars and all the rest of it. I gave it 4 because it provoked emotion in me. It resonated with me because it was, I sell Singer sewing machines, for those that don't know, although I don't sell a lot of them because I compete with people like Spotlight and online sales and stuff like that. But I do sell them. I sell parts and stuff like that for when they need to be repaired. And I sew on Singer sewing machines. I have vintage sewing machines. I have a treadle sewing machine. The only thing I don't have is a hand crank sewing machine. So I am looking to get that. So it was really good. When they were talking about it, I could envision my treadle machine was made in 10 years after this storyline started. So I have a 1921 Singer sewing machine, and then my husband purchased me for a birthday a few years back. He got me a 1954, I think it is, or 53 201 Singer sewing machine. And I also have a Singer. Now, it's in disrepair. It was found in a barn. It's been sat out in our shed, and it's in a bad way, but it's actually a Singer. It's a treadle. It's a Singer boot making machine. So I will have to actually take pictures of it. As I said, it's out in the shed. It's got a heap of stuff around it, so I won't be able to. But later down the track, I'll share it to the Facebook group. And for those that do not know about my Facebook group, we have a Facebook group called DDs Quilting and Crafting Group. So you can head over there. You can join that group, and basically you can post what you're working on and all the rest of it. The only thing that I ask is that you don't share other creators' videos to the group, because I'm not allowed to do in their group, and I prefer not to have, it is my group, and I work very hard to do all this sort of stuff. So yeah, so basically that's, I think, why it resonated with me, because I have all these machines around me and I have vintage machines. And the nature of my husband's job, he does end up in places out west where, there's old farms and people just put Singer sewing machines in, and even other vintage machines. I've got a few other Singers as well. Oh, he also got me a 1960s quilting, one of their first quilting machines. So it's just a domestic machine, but it's metal, it's heavy. I believe it's a 60. I believe it was from in the 60s. I'll have to look up the serial number again. I'll let you know next week, or I'll put it in the description down below if I find it. But yeah, it is heavy, and it's got this little extension table that hooks onto it, and it's got all the fancy stitches and all the rest of it. And this was the first one where the feed dogs dropped down, so I know that it was the quilt to use for quilting and also for darning. So it was moving into that era was sort of moving into where they were starting to include absolutely everything in sewing machines and stuff like that. And that's what, like, huge, heavy. I actually haven't had it serviced or anything like that. It is electric, so I can plug it in. I haven't had it serviced, but I do actually want to get it set up, not necessarily to use for quilting or anything, but for my bag making, because I'm telling you now, these vintage machines are brilliant for bag making. They just go through a lot of leather and stuff like that without any just like it was butter, like no problem at all. So that's, yeah, and that's sort of what I want to do in my studio, is to get it all sorted up. But as you know, I'm still renovating it, and it's a very slow going thing. Money's tight for everybody, and I do everything bit by bit. But yeah, this book really resonated with me. As I said, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars, mainly because it provoked emotion in me, and I related to it because, it was about the Singer sewing machine, and it covered a couple of generations, a couple of eras through our history from that time. And yeah, it was really good. I really, really, really enjoyed it. So I'm going to do a little bit more, as I said, a little bit more research, see what I can find and about the author, and see if she's got some other books. Subsequently, because I listened to that I ended up getting some recommendations down the bottom. There was a book there that I've seen, and it's based on it's not a true story. I don't think it was a true story, but it's based on a seamstress that worked in Buckingham Palace. So I'm actually thinking of going to read that as well. So I've put it in my wish list to read. So that'll be a really interesting book. Just from the publisher's notes, it looks like it's going to be an actual really interesting book. So I'm pretty keen to read that. Yesterday when I was out and about, I seen a couple of books that I'm going to see if I can't find on Audible. One was The Dressmakers of Auschwitz, which is all based on fact, just flicking through the book. And the other one was The Tattooist of Auschwitz that I seen. I think I'm pronouncing that wrong. My tongue never wraps around that. But yeah, so I am going to look and see if I can't find those, because I think that they will be very interesting to read. What else did I read this week? That was it. I did start another book. I don't have it here in front of me. It's a physical book. It is a Shadow Hunter series book. I'm so sorry. I cannot remember the name of the author. Oh, I can't remember. So yeah, anyway. I've only read probably 40 pages in that, so I'm not going to be getting through that anytime soon. So that has actually become, it was on my bookshelf, and that has actually become my end of day book. And for those that don't know, I actually do try to read a book at the end of the day. Lately, I haven't been doing that. I was doing that with, as I said, with the Discovery of Witches series. And so I've had this book on my bookshelf for quite some time. So I thought, you know what better time than to grab it. I also have a whole heap of other physical books here that I'm probably going to have them as my end of day as well. And then just listen to the stuff that I've got on Brendan's list and my list, and also now all this other stuff that's included in our membership, which is great. Absolutely great that we've got that access. All right, so the other books that I've been reading have been the Virgin River series. I didn't read one this week, but I did start one this week. I'm up to book 7, which is Paradise Valley. I'm at chapter 4, and oh my God, I don't know whether I want to read it, but anyway, one of the main characters from the first couple of books comes back into it, and I'm a little bit scared to read it, but anyway, I will update you next week on what that's about, because I don't think I can actually tell you much about this book without giving too much away from what I can see so far. So I'm a little bit worried that I might not be able to talk to you about it, but I will take some notes as I'm reading and all the things that I can talk about. So far it is now following the story of the doctor that came into the last book, and the girl that he had a one-night stand with. And it's also following the story of the Major, which was Vanessa's father, from the last book as well, and his developing love story. So these, for anybody that doesn't know, the Virgin River books are a romance book genre. They're in the women's fiction and a rural small town. So Virgin River is a small town, and basically, I don't know, something's in the water, people are having babies, everyone's fallen in love, and I'm really invested in this series now. There are 19 books in this series. I'm up to book 7. So I'm trying to read one a week, and in some cases I have read 1.5 in a week, but I'm trying to read one a week. And as I said, I didn't get to that this week because I have been falling down the rabbit hole of finding these other books and whatnot. So with any luck, I will finish that book this week, and I will get on to a few other books as well. I've gone through my bookshelf again, as I was saying, and there's a couple there. There's some period pieces and all the rest of it. So back to my list. One of the lists that I had, genres that I had there, was for period pieces. So things like Sense and Sensibility, Pride and Prejudice weren't necessarily classics, but fiction that went back to that sort of time. So I had a friend of mine, Gail. Hey Gail, how you going? She recommended some books on there, and I cannot think of the name of them. Oh, notes, people. I need to take notes. I will get better at this, I promise. Anyway, she recommended, I haven't read any of those. I have the whole series in to buy. So I'm thinking that I'm actually going to buy that series, and then I'll just read one book or whatever and have them as my end of day book when I get to next year. So I don't think I'm going to cover them this year. So I replaced those books with the Bridgerton series. So I've got one more to read in that sort of genre, and I found some more Julia Quinn books, and they're another set in the same period, and they're another series. So I think there's only 4 in that. So I'll read those, and then we'll be right, and I'll be able to finish off that list. So I ended up swapping them out. So the other books that I have been looking at to read, so I've read this year the Shadow and Bone series, which is the Grishaverse series, and there is another 2 books that continue on, standalone, but continue on from that in that Grishaverse. So Shadow and Bone is actually a Netflix series at the moment on Netflix, obviously. But I started watching it, and I think I got to episode I think I've got to episode 2 and I went, you know what, I want to read the books first to make sure that they've not taken too much creative license with it and all the rest of it. So I went and read the first 3 books. Well, there's only 3 in that series. And the series does match up pretty good. So for those that don't like to read books, go and watch the series. You'll enjoy it. Same as the Witcher series, you'll enjoy that too. And also the Bridgerton. So these are all those 3 series that I've read are all, and Virgin River's also a Netflix series as well. So I'm trying to read out. I tried to read all those books before I got into the series. The Discovery of Witches is also a series. I think that's on Binge though here in Australia. Excuse me. So basically, I'm trying to read all these books, and that's why my list changed so dramatically. Excuse me. Got a bit of a dust down my throat there. But yeah, basically I have not done a lot of reading this week, but I have done a lot of squirreling away on the wish lists and all the rest of future books that I want to read. I've got, as I said, I've still got that free book from Audible to read, which was a memoir. And memoirs are new to me, so I'm not automatically gravitating towards it, but I am pretty keen to read this one. So I'll probably fire that up after I finished Paradise Valley from Robin Carr. And then, as I said, I have got to go and get a journal so I can write down my my short stories, because that's how they feel to me. They're short stories, so that if you were to purchase the book, it'd probably have no more than 200. To me, a short story is 300 pages and less. So as long as it's more than 100 pages, because you can get some of those real short stories where they're under 100 pages. But for me, for it to qualify as a short story, for me personally, it has to be 100 pages to probably no more than 350, because I can pretty much, even when reading those books, I can smash them out in a day. So they're a short story to me. But I'm loving the audiobooks, and I've never been a fan of them, but I am loving the audiobooks purely just for the productivity that I'm getting. And I'm now finding that I'm actually missing not listening to a book. When I go walking and all that sort of stuff, I'm listening. But that's it from me this week. I have stitched out a heap, and don't forget to leave me a thumbs up down below and comment and tell me what you thought, and subscribe, and I'll see you later. Bye for now.